up? We are back for another amazing webinar. This one is super important to you and your business because we're going to talk about email deliverability and how to get more emails to the inboxes that you're sending to. This is important because we've been dealing with some big changes in the industry over the past couple months. Always been rules and regulations around these sort of things, but they've tightened what those things are. And there's some requirements and some things that you need to do on your side to make sure that more of your emails get to the inbox, the destination on the other end, right? So if you're in real estate, which is the clientele that we service, if you're in real estate, you're sending things out. You're sending property listings out. You're sending nurture campaigns out. You're sending emails to hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of contacts every single month. And it's highly likely that most of those are going to spam if it's not set up correctly. So we're joined today by Lisa Gall. Lisa, say what's up.
Hey.
Lisa's amazing. So she's been helping our community with their settings, right? So she's an expert in this field. She has tons of knowledge about it, and that's what she's going to be sharing with us today. And what we do is we lean on her quite a bit, right? So when we have new clients come in and we know that there's issues around this, before we get started, before we ramp them up and start sending a lot of communication out, we put them in touch with Lisa, and Lisa kind of reconstructs everything that's going on. And the one thing you need to keep in mind as we go through everything today is this, what we're about to talk about is not just for like one service that you use. It isn't just for like your CRM platform or just like your Gmail. This encompasses everything that you're doing across your domain, right? So we typically all have a domain, like I have exploreclearwaterbeach.com. And that domain, there's everything that's connected to it, right? All of the emails that are being sent on behalf of that. And even more importantly, like third world countries like Russia, China, like spoofing emails is a giant thing as well. So the monitoring of this and the maintenance of this, it is so important to being able to have high deliverability and ultimately speak with more people. Yeah, so that was a long-winded, intro or whatever. Lisa, give us just like the 30-second rundown of who you are, where you're at, how you got there, like give us a little backstory.
Well, hey everybody, Mike, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of help everybody understand this a little more. I have been working in the digital marketing space for 22 plus years. I'm a lot older than I look. I've been doing this for a really long time, early 2000s. I started in the digital marketing space, and just from being in SEO, building websites, and being able to understand the infrastructure of all of these things, it kind of naturally led itself into email deliverability. So since about 2012, I've actually been doing email deliverability audits, helping people clean lists. I have accounts that I manage now that send 10 million emails a month. So I see all sorts of things that happen. I have had to get really creative with how to set these things up and to do it so that you make everybody happy. So Google's happy, Yahoo's happy, Comcast is happy, and your emails actually get to the inbox, right? Because that's what we all want. So that's pretty much it. I mean, I nerd out on this stuff every day, and I work with you guys on the daily as well as doing some other online marketing stuff.
Yeah. Well, cool. We're super excited to have you. We're super excited for you to be able to share this information with whoever's on the other end of this watching. Whether you're part of our community or not, this is just important information that you need to know about. And Lisa's there, if you need any help navigating any of this. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go ahead and share the slides that we've got queued up. And Lisa's going to kind of take the front seat here, and I'm going to let her drive the car and just walk through this. I'll chime in here and there where there's, the opportunity or things that I think are relevant, but have at it, Lisa.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Well, like Mike mentioned, what we're going to talk about today is kind of what is email deliverability and some best practices and a little bit of information about, understanding things like list hygiene and the records a little more, because a lot of you contact me and say, hey, Lisa, I need help, or GGMS will send somebody over and say, hey, Lisa, can you help us with this, or get this person on the right path, so we can ensure that, from onboarding to start day, we can get their emails and their messaging in the inbox. So we already talked about a little bit about me. Email deliverability is essentially just getting those emails to the inbox. Getting them to the inbox means more engaged customers, more conversions, more activity on your website. And what people don't realize is it's not about just creating that engagement through your customer, but a lot of email deliverability, once you get that return traffic, that also helps your SEO, which a lot of people don't think about. And that's initially how I got started in all of this, was finding out that doing certain things and making sure that emails were being delivered and people clicking on certain things in the email, that was actually improving return traffic, improving search rankings for certain things. And so there's a lot of things that email deliverability can help you with. And at the end of the day, it's about serving your customer and giving that value to your customer, and ultimately resulting in more business for you.
Yeah, and real quick before we get to this here, we've seen clients come through the service with Lisa and see their site traffic just skyrocket after they're through everything, because the emails that were getting blocked, their property listing alerts and things like that, they start getting delivered. Right. They just weren't even hitting the inbox before. And sometimes on the back end, you're getting a false read. You think it's getting delivered, but it's not. Right. And
Right.
so there's clients that we've had go through this process with her, and it's just night and day difference on how much traffic comes back to the website. And it isn't because they weren't interested. It's that they didn't even have the ability, because the email wasn't even there, right? What you
Right.
thought was there wasn't even an option. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Thanks, Mike. It's funny because I've even had people email me and say, Lisa, I don't know what you did, but make it stop. It's too much. I'm getting too much. Like,
Yeah.
So it's funny that I get those kinds of emails, but also that's exactly what you want to have happen.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's the very first sign that you could tell that you're doing something right, is when you start to see that return traffic and more inquiries, more clicks and things like that. So that means we're doing something right. So there are a few things about email deliverability that I want to kind of explain. And one of the misconceptions recently has been that email deliverability only has to do with your server settings, right? We keep seeing things about DMARC, SPF, DKIM keys. That's like a very, very tiny piece of what email deliverability is. And it really starts with your list first, your database first. When somebody, contacts me, or when you guys share somebody with me, generally the very first thing that we have to do is look at, how did you generate these emails? Where did all of these lists come from? I have real estate agents who send me a bunch of spreadsheets and say, oh, well, it came from this website, and it came from this program, and it came from this, and when was the last time you emailed with them? When was the last time you spoke to them or had any kind of engagement? You can't take those emails from one website to another and automatically start emailing to them, because there are no doubt emails in there that are going to be considered spam traps. And as soon as you send to them, it's the very first signal that Yahoo or Google is going to look for to say, oh, these people are spammers. So automatically you're going to ding your reputation. So it's a very good thing to actually validate and clean your list before you even upload it into your CRM like Sierra, or before you even have GGMS to start sending out messages to them. So email list cleaning is kind of the first piece to it, and a small part of it, but the ongoing maintenance of that list as well. So if you start emailing that list and you get an unsubscribe or a block or a spam report, it's super important to either have things in place to manage those properly, or to have a person in place that kind of does that manually for you. And unfortunately for us, not all third parties are created equal, right? So some of them will be able to automatically handle those maintenance items for us, and some CRMs like Sierra, we have to give it a little extra help. So they will mark it as a bounce or a bad email, but they won't unsubscribe it. And every time you send out an email, it will continue to email to it. So it's our job to make sure that we unsubscribe those emails. And we'll talk more about fake emails, no emails in a little bit.
Yeah, real quick on that cleaning topic, we were just Lisa and I were talking about this right before we started the session, and it's such an important thing. And you can do this after, even if you have the leads inside your database, you can still export them. You can do an export. You can still scrub them. You can still re-import them. You can still clean it up. So the best thing to do is do this before you even bring them in to wherever you're going to send things from. But the second best thing is, at least, do this process and clean it up. If you've ever gotten a lead with a bad email address, like drop something in the chat and let me know if this has ever happened to you. Lead registers, bad email address, right? Or fake email address. This happens all the time. Weeks, months, years go by, and you're just collecting tons of people that all they wanted to do, a portion of them, I'm not saying every single person that registers on your site is going to give you a fake email, but a percentage of them are. And they just wanted to get past whatever, registration block you had in front of them to get on the other side. But, now you've got that inside your system. So we need to manage that properly. Some systems do it automatically, but if your system doesn't do it automatically, it has to be manually done by somebody. Somebody has to do it. Somebody has to monitor it, those sort of things. So that list cleanup thing is just so important to this whole process. So yeah, sorry, Lisa, just wanted to jump in and throw that out there.
All really great stuff. And, and like Mike said, we can do that to a database that you've been emailing to, especially if you're having problems with it, or your SendGrid account, it gives you some sort of compliance thing and stops working because of whatever reason. We can always do it at any point, and you really should if you've never done it. Other parts to this whole email deliverability picture is the email compliance part. And email compliance doesn't just have to do with the Google and Yahoo enforcing these new, they're not really new restrictions. They've always been around. They were just never heavily enforced before. And this is the year that they said, okay, enough is enough. We've got too many scammers and spammers out there. We've got to stop it. And that's essentially why these rules are being so heavily enforced now. But email compliance is those server enforcements, your infrastructure, but it's also your email content. How many links do you have in your email? What are your subject lines? I was looking at, I had an agent reach out to me today and say, hey, Lisa, my Google is blocking all of my emails. Is this because I don't have the right server settings? So I look, everything is passing compliance in terms of settings and infrastructure. But when I look at his Sierra emails, every single subject line on his email just says general property search over and over and over again to thousands of emails. That's a number one sign that it's just a spam email and not a relevant email. we think it's relevant, and maybe your customer might see that as relevant, but you have to vary your subject lines. You can't leave them the same all the time. You have to make sure that you're following all the canned spam rules. If somebody unsubscribes, you have 30 days to get that person off of your list. And if you don't, you could be fined for that. I don't know of anyone, even the accounts that send millions of emails, I don't know of anyone yet who has been fined, but the fines are pretty heavy. If I wanted to go after somebody for keeping me on whatever list after asking them multiple times to remove me, they could be fined for every email that they send me after the fact. And
Wow.
it's like $15,000 to $17,000 per email
Per email. Yeah. And imagine how many systems you got these contacts in. I mean, that happens a lot, right?
Yeah, exactly. I had a real estate agent from a brokerage once she basically hopped from brokerage to brokerage, and she took all the lists, the employee lists, the lead lists, and everything, everywhere that she went. And I was a vendor on one of those lists. And I actually ended up reporting her because every time she switched brokerages, she put me on these awful marketing emails. They were awful. And I asked her to stop. I contacted her broker. I said, please remove me. She shouldn't have my email anyway. She doesn't. So I was very close to reporting her in the brokerage, but I wouldn't do that to somebody. So, all of those parts are part of email compliance. The other parts of email delivery or deliverability is, what are your current open rates for your sending? What are your current engagement levels for your sending? How are your records set up? What is your current reputation of your domain or your past reputation of your domain? A lot of people don't know this, but email content is cached just like a web page. So if you have a low sender reputation and your email template has never changed, you're sending, you always put your company name in the same place. It's the same address. You're sending out exactly the same kind of email content over and over again. You have bad reputation here and you go over here, that follows you. That cached email follows you. So you want to change up the number of links that you have in your email. You want to change up what your email looks like if you're switching, so that you're not bringing over any of that old information with you.
Wow.
It's a lot of stuff involved in trying to figure out, why your emails aren't, you're taking all this time to do all this stuff. And then, what's happening now is Google, for instance, is not even delivering emails now. They're saying, you're a scammer, you're a spammer, we're just not going to send it. Yahoo is at least sending them to spam. So Google is just, they're just saying altogether, we're not doing it. So one of the things that I want to explain are these 3 records. Probably the 3 most important records to your domain when you're sending email. These records, a DMARC record, you can only have 1 on your domain. And the DMARC record essentially does 2 things. It controls the policy on your domain, and it also allows you to turn on reporting for your domain. So a DMARC is essentially that policy. There are 3 different things that you'll see, either none, quarantine, or reject. None basically means that I'm saying that if some scammer or some website is sending emails out as my domain, don't do anything, deliver it to the inbox. I'm essentially giving blanket approval for anybody to use my domain to send email out as me. Quarantine basically says, when you receive an email from my domain that I haven't approved, put it in the spam folder. The reject policy basically says, when you receive email that I haven't declared, then don't deliver it at all. I don't want it to leave my server, right? So, and then the reports they're sent to your email, or in my case, if you hire me, they're sent to my software. And my software basically analyzes all these reports from millions of emails that are being sent to say, okay, is this allowed on this domain? If it is, does it have the right SPF record? Does it have the right key? Is it allowed to be using this domain? Does it pass? So I can see all of those things, and then I get alerts if anything bad is going on. Or you're going to see later some really odd, fun things that I've been able to find for people about why their emails are slow or why their emails are not being delivered. These reports are how you figure out what's going on your domain, or who's sending emails out on your behalf.
Yeah, it's kind of like having a checkpoint, right? And you're stopping the traffic, the email traffic. You're saying, wait a minute, is it good for everything to pass through? Do I need to stop things or just reject them altogether? So you know, if you don't have this set up, none of this is happening. Right. And then when you do, you have that kind of control over what's being sent over your domain. And again, it's super important because there's so many people out there that spoof people's domains.
Right.
You know, China and Russia, it's a real thing. There's a lot of, it just is. It's a real thing. They spoof the emails. They're using, basically hijacking your domain and sending things out of it. Thousands of emails a day sometimes, right? And it's all happening behind the scenes. And if this isn't set up, you have no checkpoint to stop that from happening, right? So it's just, it's very important.
Right. And the DMARC policy, you know, if especially with your Sierra accounts, a lot of you might see on your Sierra account, if you ever, you know, ask for your records or whatever, might see DMARC none, and it's a very short record essentially, and it says none. Basically, what that means is that record exists to pass compliance with Google and Yahoo, but it's not doing anything. There's no reporting turned on. There's no policy turned on. Google and Yahoo essentially said by, you know, February, we need everybody to at least have this record exist. It's probably one of the only records that you could blanketly put on a domain and have it pass a small piece of that Google Yahoo compliance. Everything else is unique to a domain and unique to its sending.
Yeah.
Did you have something else, Mike?
No. I was just going to say, I mean, as we get into the SPF and the DKIM records, I mean, it all plays right into each other. I mean, you have to have all three of these configured in order to really,
correct.
Yeah, to really maximize things.
You have to have all three of these records on your domain. The DMARC record, you can only have one of those. An SPF record, you can only have one of these. And this is probably one of the more important records to have on your domain, because this record is basically your allow list. Who are you allowing to use your domain to send email as you? So when you sign up for Gmail or Google Workspace or Outlook or GoDaddy email or whatever service you're signing up for, whatever email client or host that you're signing up for, they generally give you a basic SPF record to have on your domain, right? I can't tell you the number of domains that I have audited in the last 3 months. Out of 1,200, probably 2% may have that step completed. Wow. Nobody had that step completed. That's also the record that when you send from your Google account, some people would get that yellow notification that says this is an external domain or email, don't trust it.
Yep.
That generally means you don't have an accurate SPF record on file.
So it's kind of pre-scanning it. It already knows what's going on and it's giving you that warning. Yep.
So that SPF record basically says, I'm allowing Sierra's website to send emails as me. I'm allowing SendGrid to send emails as me. I'm allowing MailChimp to send emails as me. I'm allowing Follow Up Boss to send emails as me. Whatever, name whatever third-party service, that's what this record does. And when you send an email, it goes out to the other server. The other server is going to check this record and say, okay, is this allowed? If it's not, DMARC, what do I do with it? What's the policy here? And then that's how it determines where it gets delivered, if it gets delivered.
Yeah.
The DKIM key is you can have multiple DKIM keys on your domain. A DKIM key is essentially a key that unlocks a door. It says, this is my key, my security key that says I'm allowed to send email for this domain. Not every third party provides these. Every email client provides them. Email deliverability software or SMTPs like Mandrill or SendGrid or Mailgun, they all provide them, and sometimes multiple keys. And what they use that key for is when your email goes out, that key kind of goes in the background, and the receiving server can check that key against what's on your server. If it matches, the email is received. If it doesn't match, that means that somebody, a scammer, has altered your email and is trying to send emails out on as you, and
Yep.
they're not you.
So think with things around sending things to title companies, receiving emails from title companies. A lot of people will even send routing instructions or account numbers through email. If these things are not configured properly, I mean, you're running a giant risk of the other side getting an email that has been altered or doctored up, and the receiving end, if they don't, because, you know, me working with title companies, I'd call the title company immediately after sending the email to confirm the account and routing number that they received, right? And do that confirmation. And you should still do that confirmation, but this is a layer that allows your email to also do that confirmation. So it's important things. I mean, these are just all very, very important things to have completed.
Right. Okay. So I'm gonna, I was on your webinar yesterday, Mike, and there was a section that you got pretty technical in. Well, I didn't think it was technical, but
yeah.
So,
I tried to warn people before we got into it. I was like, hey, look, just stay with me for a minute. It's going to get a little crazy. Just stay with me. It'll all make sense, right? So right. I feel like we're getting into another one of those, right?
Okay. We're gonna do that, but I tried to make it as easy as possible. And one thing that I am going to preface this by saying is the example that I'm kind of laying out here is probably the most basic setup that you could probably get with Sierra, GGMS, and maybe one other third party, right? Yep. None of the 1,200 domains that I have audited look like this. Every one of them is much more complicated than what I'm
We're just giving a general blanket, like these Correct. Are the main items, but it is the way that this works. Everyone runs things differently. Correct. One team's going to be a solo, or one person's going to be a solo agent. Another person's going to have a team of 100 people. One Correct. Person is going to use one system to do all their stuff. Another person's going to have 10 systems. So I think that's what we're getting at here, right? We're going to lay Right. the foundation, really just let you know that, this is what we see every time we do this, but just know that this gets a little bit different based on things you got going on in your business.
Exactly. Yeah. So the example here, so what we're going to start with is your domain. So myrealestatedomain.com, right? So I get that. GGMS sends that to me and says, hey, Lisa, help us. Make sure that they're set up right. Make sure that, everything's in compliance so we can start helping them market. So I always look at, okay, so here's the domain. How are you sending email? Are you sending email right from this domain? In this case, we're going to say yes. We're sending email right from this domain. So my emailing domain is myrealestatedomain.com. So then I'm going to look at the emailing domain. What's your email client? Is it Outlook? Is it Google Workspace? All of these companies kind of handle all of these records a little differently, right? So you have to collect all of those things. So I look to see if you have those basic things in place. So then I'm going to go look at your CRM in your bulk emails. And most of the time, I'm going to set myself up as a lead. And I would encourage anybody to set themselves up as a lead. You want to do this anyway because you want to see what it looks like, what your customers are getting, if you're getting it. But in terms of email deliverability, we're trying to figure out what it looks like when those emails come. So when I click on that from email address, is it showing your domain or is it showing something else? If you have a brand new Sierra site and you haven't set up anything else on it, you're not going to see your domain when you click on that email address. You might see sierramls.com or agentofficemail.com or something similar. So that means that you're going to have to put them as an allowed sender on that SPF record. You're not sending those emails out as yourself. You're allowing someone else to kind of pretend to be you, but it shows up as you on the other end.
And this can happen in multiple systems. It's not unique to Sierra.
Correct.
If you're using, it could be Follow Up Boss, it could be Lofty, it could be a number of companies out there. This is like, what she's getting at is this is the fallback, like the out of the box ability for you to be able to send emails through that platform. A lot of times they'll have some of these fallback things where you're using the other company's server and or email addresses, domains to send things through. And again, like, it's not that it can't be like that, and it's not that you can't continue to do that. It's best to do it if it comes out of your own domain.
Correct.
But if you choose to route everything through whatever that third-party software is that you're sending out of, you at least need to go back and do the steps we talked about a minute ago so that it still is legitimately coming from you. You're giving authorization to that and to that third party.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And then you're going to have things on your domain like a GGMS, where GGMS is a marketing tool on top of your CRM. GGMS isn't necessarily sending out emails through their own servers or anything like that. So you have to analyze each part and piece of your sending to figure out, do I need a record for this? Do I not need a record for this? And the fallback for not knowing is to set up that SPF record and turn on the reporting in your DMARC, because then you can see if GGMS is actually sending out emails, and you will find out that they don't. Everything goes through your own domain through the Sierra platform. So there's no requirement for an SPF or a DMARC or a special key, because GGMS is not actually sending emails on your behalf. They're using marketing on top of a tool that is sending out emails as you.
Yep.
Okay. Third-party vendors. There's a million gazillion of these out there.
Oh, and imagine how many agents sign up for on a weekly, monthly basis, just new services. You're like, oh, I'm going to go try this out, or I'm going to go get an account for this, or, oh, you know what? Somebody told me that I should try MailChimp. I'm going to go grab that, get a free trial. I'm going to go in there, poke around. I'm going to send something out. I mean, this is how this problem occurs, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and what
and
I
it's okay. It's natural to go want to try these different services. You just need to be aware that there's a little bit of setup above and beyond just whatever that platform's walking you through. There's some other things to make sure that you're not damaging your overall ability to send emails. And that Lisa's going to get into it, but it is a real thing. I mean, we all do it. So.
Well, and it's also important that if you're not using these services anymore, to remove them from your records, because I have found accounts that they're not using these services anymore, and scammers have hijacked their domains or their SendGrid keys and start sending emails out as them. So it's just as important that if you're going to stop using something, that you also remove the records. The thing that I wanted to mention here, the most important thing, is every vendor is going to have their own SPF, their own DMARC, and their own DKIM keys that they have to manage on their behalf to make sure that their emails are being delivered. And then that creates special, unique records that have to be added to your records. So there are some vendors who you don't have to add anything. They take care of everything on their side. Then you have some vendors who say, okay, well, we've just added, we're going to take care of it, but you have to add just this one little piece of thing, and it's the same for everybody who uses our site. Then you have some that it's special and unique to every domain, every account, every setup of each one of these vendors. Fellow, for example, does everything on a subdomain. So I've actually gone through a few Fellow onboarding things, and one of the things that they do tell you is they use a subdomain, which is great. So they have their own DMARC, they have their own SPF and DKIM records on your domain. So it's engaged.yourdomain.com and then their own records. They tell you that they do that so that if they become spammy or their, whatever the reputation happens doesn't affect your domain. But I am here to tell you that that's a subdomain of your domain. So yes, that's partially true, but not really true. You have to still maintain the reputation of those subdomains, because whatever you do there does affect your overall domain. So those records are unique to them. GMS doesn't have any records because they don't need them. App files is an old kind of transaction filing system that some larger brokerages use. They use 6 different domains, and I actually had to help them figure out their own email deliverability to get it to work. So this is the other thing. So when you're collecting these records to put them together, you have to be aware of what the setup requirements are in these other third parties as well, because they all go together. And when you don't use them anymore, take them out of there.
Yeah, and just a few minutes ago, we talked about, there's some basics, but what we were just looking at a second ago, that's where the complexity comes in, because no 2 clients are going to have the exact same setup. They're not going to all be using the same pieces of software or signed up for the same things, right? If you use BombBomb, if you use all these different tools, there's a ton of different tools, and real estate agents are being sold so much software that send emails or use their email address. It just, it's important to do. It's just important to do.
Right, exactly. So if we go back to our example here, myrealestatedomain.com, we have one website domain, we're using Google Workspace, we have one CRM, and we have one third-party tool that doesn't require us to have any of those extra records. So if I were putting those records together, I would first look to see if this record exists on the domain. This one didn't have one, which means that none of the emails were probably being received on the other end. So this DMARC record, remember, tells us what our policy is, and it turns on these reports. So right now we have the policy set to none. And you want to do this if you're just setting up the records and you have no idea what's being sent out over your domain. You always want to start out with this policy set to none, so that you don't kill your entire business and not have any of your emails delivered.
Yeah, so this is just getting the record there, but allowing everything to still flow through.
Correct.
Just for the moment, right?
Just for the moment.
Yeah.
So we monitor the reports coming in to say, okay, and I have been able to find a lot of junk and be able to block a lot of things, but also a lot of forgotten campaigns that people have running. We've been able to find
Yeah.
as well. So,
Yeah, you're like, hey, do you still use this piece of software? They're like, and then they go look and they're like, yeah, yep, still have it. I
right,
still have
exactly.
market leader, right? I still have whatever it is from,
Right.
20 years ago. Yeah.
So then we just thinking about our simple example that we have. Now we have to create that allow list. Who's allowed to send email on my behalf? Google's definitely allowed to send email on my behalf because that's how we do those one-to-one emails. The Sierra CRM is allowed to send emails on my behalf because I'm just starting out. I have 10 leads in my database. I'm not doing any kind of yet. This is a temporary record. But look how short this record is. An SPF record is only allowed to have 10 lookups in it. So you might look at this and say, well, Lisa, you only have 2 in there. Well, that's not true. Google by itself has 6 additional domains in its own record. So that counts as 6 different lookups.
Wow.
So then Agent Office Mail, which is Sierra's domain, causes 7 more additional lookups, right? So that already breaks this rule and makes this record null.
It feels like 10 lookups is pretty limited given the fact that Google's going to take up 6 of them right out of the gate. I mean, that's pretty,
correct.
that's
And
pretty
it
wild.
depends again. I mean, there are so many little nuances
Sure.
to this. One of the ways around this is to gather every IP address that is included in these lookups. Google changes their IP addresses all the time. So you don't want to change this lookup. You want to leave that as google.com, right? When you put in the IP addresses, it doesn't count as a lookup because it doesn't have to look up the directory of those IP addresses to see who's allowed to send on what IP addresses. So these are all the current IP addresses and IP address pools that Sierra uses.
Yeah, these are all static IPs, right? Not dynamic, so they're not changing. Google is using dynamic, so they're randomizing it. You still have that record at the end, which is going to take up those 6 spots.
Right.
But all of those IPs, they're freebies, right?
Correct.
They're freebies. Yeah.
So these don't count as lookups. So now we've only got 7 lookups in here, but 2 email senders. So another nuance that people don't really understand when they're trying to put these records together. I sometimes will see some of these records where somebody's tried to put them together, or a vendor who might not really understand that this causes this many lookups. So they just start adding BombBomb, MailChimp, Sierra, Google. Today I saw an account that had Amazon, Google, Outlook. I'm like, you have email clients and hosting at every one of these? Like, that's impossible.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful what you put in here, because doing a record that goes beyond the 10 lookups will actually result in as if you didn't have the record to begin with.
Yep.
So the DKIM key, usually in most cases, is created at the place where emails are created, is probably the easiest way that I can explain this. Anywhere you're hosting your emails, Rackspace, Outlook, GoDaddy, or Google, they create these DKIM keys, right? So they're saying, here's your permission key, give this to all your vendors. This has to go on your server so that the 2 things match and you can send out emails. SendGrid also creates these keys. Mailgun creates these keys. Mandrill creates these keys. MailChimp, anything that kind of originates email for you creates these keys, right? So then next steps is, after you gather all of that, create your records, you want to get them to your DNS. Either you can do it yourself, you can have Sierra do it. In most of for our purposes today, most of the people here have Sierra, so Sierra would make those changes. The thing that I cannot stress enough is when you get the, okay, I've made those changes to your records, double check them. I can't tell you the number of times there's an extra character in them, or you know, a wrong character, a mistype, and it could put your email down for days. And sometimes if you go back and you look at it, you feel like an idiot because you missed the extra space after the underscore or something. So you always want to check them. Don't rely on the fact that you didn't make a mistake or somebody else didn't accidentally make a mistake. When you're copying and pasting records, you copy them and paste them into something else, it always happens that extra spaces get in those records. And then after you get them, then you just monitor your sending and make tweaks and changes based on what's coming across. If you see domains using your account, then you can take the appropriate action to either fix your record or block whatever domain or IP is trying to use your domain. Some common things that I have seen in the last couple of months. Assuming your records are exactly the same as another domain. Do not do this. Do not copy the records from Joe's domain because he's using some similar services as you, or you both have Sierra accounts, so your records are going to be exactly.
Have you seen vendors do this quite often where they try to, oh, we're just going to come up with something and try to blanket put this on everybody's domain? You know, have you seen that? Yeah.
I did. And right when Google and Yahoo kind of first said by February, you've got to have these records in place, or we're going to send all your emails to spam. They're, you know, vendors have done that.
They were scrambling, weren't they?
They scrambled and they blanketly put the same record, assumed that everybody was using the same service, and they weren't. And in 80% of the cases, it actually broke the email sending.
Wow.
And we had to do some unraveling to kind of fix that. And you know, and then repair the reputation of the domain, right? Because you can only, you know, do that and keep it that way and not be in compliance for so long.
Yep.
Some other things are just incomplete setups. A famous one is MailChimp. People are using MailChimp, but they're not going through inside of their MailChimp accounts, not going through the complete setup process. The same thing in SendGrid. A lot of times it's a multi-step process. It's not just get the record, put it in place and verify it, but then there's a step after that, and then a step after that. You don't want to stop going in and checking it until you get that thing that says domain authenticated. If you're still seeing verify or start authentication, or it's not done, you still have more things to do.
Yep.
Another common thing, which, you know, is just the nature of what it is because it was never enforced before, is non-existent SPF, DMARC, and DKIM. I can't tell you how many people have said, Lisa, none of my emails are getting through on the other side. And I go and look, and they haven't declared even their own one-to-one emailing service in their record. And again, that goes back to not following through with the setup of their email accounts. Another common issue, no database maintenance. They're emailing these people, they're unsubscribing, you're not unsubscribing them, or they're reporting you as spam, but you keep sending them emails, or you have bad email addresses and you just keep sending to them. You're not unsubscribing them. Not warming up your list. If you have a list of 20, 30,000, 60,000 emails, do not put them in the Sierra and start emailing them right away. When you put an email address or a lead in Sierra, it's automatically going to start sending out those registration emails right away.
Mm.
So if you send out 60,000 emails that you haven't cleaned, you haven't gone through, you're going to automatically shut down your business, and probably for 45 days or more, you're not going to be able to send anything.
Wow.
So you want to make sure that you properly warm up a list. This even includes, you already have a database that you've been working and you're emailing, and now you have this new list of 12,000 leads that you got, and you want to put them in your Sierra. Don't do it. Don't do it. To properly season them in, add them 50 at a time and allow for the database to help you clean them. If you don't want to run those 12,000 emails through some sort of cleaning service, take them at 50 at a clip, 100 at a clip, and add them.
You start to marry those into what you've already got going so that you can, keep your core sends looking good and not just like trash what you're doing by adding this, unknown variable to it, right? And when you look at it, like in real estate, it's common for people to go out and buy data. It's common for people to buy for sale by owner, expired, circle prospecting data, list of agents in their market that they want to do lead generation on attraction, agent attraction. It's very common to purchase a list or have an old list laying around from a different system, put these into there. Even in my office, it's common for one agent who's either leaving the industry or is just like, oh, I have these 5,000 leads. They don't mean anything. You want to buy them from me for $200 or what? You know what I mean? And they just, you're purchasing somebody else's book of business. But then, you go throw it in here. And if you don't scrub that list, you're just going to mess everything up.
Correct. And the best day to do it in a Sierra CRM, every CRM is going to be kind of different, but most of the people here, I'm sure, have Sierra. Sierra does their biggest email sends on Mondays. That's when the biggest chunk of the property alerts go out. So if you have a list, you've run it through a validation service, and if you start with 12,000 and you're left with 9,000, you still have to season those in. So the best day to do it is add them in on a Sunday, so that on Monday your ratio of good engaged emails going out versus these brand spanking new ones that are going out, put 100 of them in every Sunday so that they season in there. And that way it doesn't look like you're unnaturally adding in a bunch of emails that you've never emailed before.
Yeah, totally.
So this one, I see a lot of questions about this in your group online. What if somebody doesn't have an email address? You have to have an email address to put them in the CRM. So a lot of people are putting, or Sierra puts no email and a special number at noemail.com, whatever. It's fine that those go in there, but the worst thing that you can do is then try to send something to that account.
Yeah.
So you have to, the proper thing to do is to automatically unsubscribe that email from email alerts and marketing emails. You don't want to leave that on. And then as your agents are working the leads, as you're working the leads, that should be like one of those little maintenance tabs that you click on. Create a smart filter for, so that you can try and get an email account for it. But don't leave it subscribed. Because what's going to happen, because of this great thing that GGM has built, you have automatic property alerts that get set up. You have automatic emails that Sierra creates and sends out. You have other things that happen on these leads that are going to try and send out emails. And the more you try to send to that email over and over, you're just damaging your reputation to that domain over and over and over again. This one is a big one. Do not send bulk email accounts or bulk emails out with an alias email account.
Meaning one that does not actually exist. Correct. For everybody out there, where you're given the option to send something from, client care at domain, but that's not really an email address.
Right. But there's a caveat to that. So a lot of what I'm seeing is some GGMS users and Sierra users who have SendGrid accounts, who maybe don't have a Google Workspace or an Outlook or a GoDaddy account to have an actual inbox. So you're using client care at my real estate domain. In SendGrid, you're able to go into that email address, verify that email address, and actually put a reply to address in there. So as long as if somebody were to hit reply, that email will go somewhere.
It's not coming back to an alias and an empty box that doesn't exist.
Correct. So in SendGrid, they give you the ability to set up those client care at my real estate domain, but when somebody hits reply, send the email here. So that's a setting inside of SendGrid I have seen no one have filled out, but because people don't know that it's there. So in my travels, when I see that, I always fill it out.
You point it out. Yeah, fill it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I told you it was going to get a little nerdy.
I think we're on the backside of it, though.
Yeah. So this now we're up to a point where I can tell you about two kind of scams or errors that I've been able to kind of, that are big ones. And every domain that I have kind of audited and gone through this process, we find undoubtedly every day a scammer is trying to use your domain for something. And if you're getting onesie twosies of these things a day, that's unfortunately, it's normal. But if you have the proper DMARC, SPF, DKIM, it's not going to damage your reputation if you have all of that stuff set up. But then you can have those domains you can take them and then block them so that they can't use your domain. But this happened probably about a month ago. I had an agent contact me and say, all of a sudden, all of my emails are going to spam or being blocked altogether for, especially Google. They think that I'm a scammer and they're not sending any of my emails. So I go in and I look at his domain, and he sends probably 20 or 30,000 emails himself a day through his 4 different domains that he has. He was sending them out. And what I discovered was there was an e-commerce site who had hijacked his domain and his SendGrid account and was sending 20,000 emails a day for their e-commerce website, soliciting, those China junk, buy here kind of thing.
Well, email costs money. Bulk email costs money.
A lot
if
of
you
money.
can hijack somebody else's servers and send 20,000 emails a day, which 6 times 2 is 120,000, or it's more than wait, hold on. Is that 1.2 million a month?
Yeah.
Is that 1.2 million? No, 30. No, that's 600,000. I'm sorry. 30 days in a month. Yeah. Let's just say 30 days, 20,000 a day.
His own email. Plus
if you can send 600,000 emails and give somebody else that bill, I mean, that's really what they're doing.
That's exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
They were sending out all that email and not having to pay.
And not having to pay for it.
And not having to pay for it. Mm-hmm. And what that does, though, is it damages your reputation. Of
course.
But it also stops your return traffic, stops your business, your email.
When they say, when they're like, your information is on the dark web, and it's all that kind of, we've noticed that your, birth certificate or birth date and social security, that's exactly what's going on here. But it's happening on your domain. It's happening on your ability to send emails. People are doing the same thing. They've gotten your information, or they're exploiting the fact that your stuff's not set up correctly, and then they're just using it, right? They're hijacking it and they're using it, and they don't care if they get turned off. They're just going to go find another one, and they probably already have dozens or hundred of these that they're using every single day, and they know that some of them are going to go away, and and they just keep keep bringing more of them online. So
Right.
that's what's so important about this whole process, is just ridding your business from, some of these challenges around email deliverability.
Right, exactly. And another kind of scam, you can't, I can't really see it, but maybe everybody else can see it. But on the right there is a sample report that I got for another real estate account. All of those websites listed there are all scam websites trying to use this particular domain on one day. And we were able to find this when we turned on those DMARC reports. And within 72 hours, I started getting all the reports, and I could see right away all of these emails, almost more than 5,074 going out in one day from this domain, from all of these foreign websites and domains that didn't mean anything to them. So we were able to block them and clean it up. And because they weren't, then this is a case where we turn that DMARC policy to quarantine, because we needed to not get these to the inbox, because we didn't want them to impersonate the domain, right?
Yep.
So I know we're running kind of long here. I'm happy to answer any questions, but this is something that I do every day. I do ask that people, realize that I am one person. And I will
1,200 of these in like the past 90 days.
Correct.
All right. And sometimes there's miscommunication back and forth, where maybe on the other side you missed an email, things like that. And it's not to say that Lisa might not miss an email. We're all human, right? But at the end of the day, she is very, very knowledgeable in what's going on here. That's why we had her on. She's an expert in this field. That's why we trust her with the accounts that she's working with, and we push clients her way, so that she can help them with this problem, because it's not only the initial setup and configuration, it's the ongoing monitoring as well. It's when you're getting those reports and when you're changing different services. Oh, hey, Lisa, by the way, I'm going to go get this service. I'm going to go get MailChimp next week. Okay, well, let's make sure that everything is ready for you to implement MailChimp in your business. It's very quick and very easy. These software companies make it so easy to get in, click, get a free account, start doing things. But we're in an environment now, since all of the rules and regulations are now actually being enforced. We're just in a new world where it's not that simple anymore. It just isn't. You really have to do these items. You always had to do this, but now it's more important than ever.
Correct. And Mike, I'm actually seeing a lot of great questions.
Yeah, so we'll do some of those. So again, we've got a few things on the screen here before I take this slide down. The email list cleaning is something that she can help with. The deliverability audit, which is amazing. She'll go through, you'll give her your domain. She'll just look through everything. She'll be able to give you like a preliminary report about what's going on. Like, hey, this is what I see. This is what it looks like. And from there, the compliance and the deliverability, the ongoing monitoring, the maintenance, all of that can be handled, and she can help with all of that. But the first thing is, clean the list up. And the biggest thing is get that deliverability audit completed, because that deliverability audit is really going to let you know where you stand, and also what is the scope of work. Is this a thing that's just going to take a couple days to unravel, or do we need like 30 Sundays to get through this thing, right? Like, what does this look like to get us back to a solid foundation in the business? So is there anything else before we remove this slide that you want to throw in there, and we'll grab a couple questions?
I just want to say that in the audits, I actually like to give 30 days of monitoring included in that audit. So if you sign up to do an audit, I just because I'm a little bit competitive and I like to be right. So I like to include the 30 days in that audit to make sure that we caught everything, that we didn't forget anything. And so, and the other thing included in that audit is also your initial records. I actually write and create all of those records for you. So moving forward after that, if you want me to continue to monitor, and if you want access to be able to say, hey, Lisa, you know, I'm noticing this happening, or I want to change and I want to do this for, you know, the ongoing monthly monitoring and maintenance, I can also manage the SPF and DMARC records for you as well. So we can change those without having to ask Sierra to do it, without going into GoDaddy to do it. So that's another benefit of having that ongoing maintenance as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. So how can you get a hold of her? You send her an email. How about that? Lisa at lisagall.com or beautyandbrains.us if you want to get to her website. She's got some material on there and a way for you to contact her through that as well. I'm going to pull up some questions. We've got a handful of them here that I see. I'm going to bring these up on the screen. We'll read through them. We'll answer them to the best of our ability. And if you have any other questions, just drop. Right now is the time because there's a little lag between what I'm saying and what shows up. So drop any other questions. We're going to go through them all. And then after that, you know, class dismissed kind of thing. So here we go. First one, if others unsubscribe from our emails, will that affect our email deliverability? Does that make us appear spammy?
The easy answer to that is no, but only if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. If somebody unsubscribes from your email, you want to make sure that you're unsubscribing them. Most CRMs and email systems, if somebody clicks unsubscribe, it automatically does it for you. Even Sierra does it. So if somebody receives an email from you through the Sierra CRM, there's an unsubscribe link. If they unsubscribe from a property alert, it will unsubscribe them from that property alert, but they'll still get marketing emails. They have to then unsubscribe from those marketing emails as a separate unsubscribe. But as long as the system is unsubscribing them, then no, that does not make you appear spammy, and it doesn't affect your email deliverability. If anything, it helps you to look like you're on top of your game because you're actually doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, totally. So Martin said, what email validation service do you recommend, or who do you avoid?
So this is actually a really great question. Two services that I like to use, one is called Bright Verify, and one is called Mailer Check. One thing that you want to avoid is telling companies like SendGrid that you're using an email cleanup service, because they hate that. They're going to notate that in your account that you're using that. So it's a clue to them that you're buying email addresses or leads in bulk. So you can use these services. They exist so you can validate these things, but emailing authorities like SendGrid, Google, and Yahoo, they're not big fans of them. But the two companies that I mentioned, after the hundreds that I've tested, I like the best. And Mailer Check will actually attempt to email all of these emails, which is why I really like them.
Oh, does like a soft send just to see?
Correct.
Yeah, get a little bounce back and see, is this real or not? So what are those two companies, one more time for those out there watching?
Bright Verify, BRITE Verify. That is owned by a company called Validity.
Okay.
And Mailer Check is the other one. Those are the two that I would recommend.
Okay, perfect. We got Joshua here. He says, Lisa, can you help with people using Lofty as there's no SendGrid integration over there? So what does that look like?
Yes.
Yep.
And, you know, Josh and I have actually had some conversations back and forth. And what you have to remember is Lofty's going to have their own requirements for what you have to include. So it doesn't matter what service you're using to send emails or what CRM you're using. Yes, we can help do that and look at the settings.
Totally. Awesome. And Josh, GGMS is going to be launching some lofty support for some plans and follow-up stuff inside there. So reach out to us, man. I'd love to have a conversation with you and see what we can do to help. All right, Teresa, any way to quickly update in bulk the communication preferences in Sierra when an email is bad or bounced? I think this is the $1 million question, right? Is there, like, what does this look like? How do you navigate this?
Here is what I'm going to suggest with Sierra specifically. Do not.
You looked up to like the heavens, like, hold, like let me bless this thing real quick before we get into this, because it's
do not bulk unsubscribe these people if it says bad or bounced emails. And I'm going to tell you why. In the 1,200 domains that I have already audited, Sierra doesn't quite understand their CRM isn't able to handle the response codes from SendGrid. So they blanketly, any response code then results in Sierra marking that email as bad or bounced, even if it's not. So they don't unsubscribe it. So the only way that you want to bulk, and there is a way to do this in Sierra, is if you wanted to bulk update the communication preferences for in Sierra, you can do that. But what I would recommend you do it only to those fake no email accounts. So you can set up a smart filter for the email field that contains fake or no email or whatever you see in the system, and create that filter for them and then bulk unsubscribe them. But do not bulk unsubscribe anything marked with bad or bounced email, because it's not an accurate depiction of that email.
Well, remember, Teresa, we just talked about Martin's question with the email validation. So, you know, if you see one of these come up, and if you see it in the record, run it through one of these, see if it's real or not, right? Like use those services. And again, like one more time, Lisa, the name of the two services, because I'm sure we maybe got her attention on this. What is that again? Bright
Verify and Mailer Check. Mailer Check will actually allow you to do one-by-one email checks as well. So I would use Mailer Check to do that when you're checking them. But that is very good.
Yeah, this is another great one. Talked about changing subject lines for outgoing emails. Is there a way to do that automatically, or is there a manual change every few days? Now, the first question I have here is I'm not sure what service you're sending these out of. So every platform is going to be a little different when it comes to this. If you're in Sierra Interactive and you're setting people up on a general search, or you have a basic search when they come in through lead routing that gets applied to them, there's a default subject line that you can switch inside of Sierra Interactive settings that you can update every few days. And anything that does not have a custom subject line, it'll use that. It'll pull from that subject line. But, you know, I've spoken with Lisa about this in the past. The best thing that you can do is the second that you get to that lead record, right, when you're doing your follow-up for brand new people coming into the system or whatnot, give it a custom subject line. But once you have a custom subject line on it, like, hey, Lisa, check out these waterfront homes for sale in Clearwater Beach, without going back to that record and doing it, there's not really a bulk update for these or anything that I'm aware of. So that's kind of my feedback on it. What do you think on your side?
I would actually absolutely agree with you. So, you know, one of the things that, you know, GGMS does is set up those favorite kind of searches, and you can change those. And, you know, it's not that you have to change them every few days. It's, you know, change them, you know, just put it in your process somewhere to kind of review them, and maybe change it every other month or so. So it's not, you have to change them as often as you think, but you should still get in there and kind of change them so that it's not hundreds of thousands of them going out every single day, every single month with the same.
I argued maybe 2 years, because I was one of the ones that complained about not being able to override the custom subject line at a global level years ago.
Yeah.
And then they did it, and I was like, "You didn't give merge field support. Like, I need to be able to merge their first
I
name and or
would
merge."
love
Like,
that.
if I could merge some things in, at least the subject line would be slightly different
Right.
for each user that it's going out to, or merge it in based on some settings from the search that's being sent, maybe
Right.
the price point of the search or the area
Or their
that's been
name.
defined. Like, any of that would be super valuable to taking that default search and really allowing it to be somewhat dynamic. We are going to only probably hang for a couple more minutes here. I have a question from Scott that I'm going to throw up on the screen, and if you have any other question, now's the time to kind of throw it in there, because if nothing else comes in, we're probably just going to pull the plug and call it a day. So Scott said, "I'm just curious if you had any communication with Sierra for them building out an interface for updating DNS records to sync via API to Cloudflare. Not sure how often we might have to update these records. Seems tiring."
So it is very tiring, and some of these records I have to request updates for multiple times, in a week as we're trying to get them right. So this is a super nerdy question that I would expect from Scott. They actually do have something like this already. I am working with them on a brokerage level account, and there is some customizations that we can pay for that allow us to be able to update the Cloudflare records ourselves per domain within that brokerage. So as far as a single setup and domain, I don't know if that's ever going to be available, simply because most people don't know how to
how to work with it, and what they're even doing. Yeah, could be dangerous.
It could be very dangerous, and I'm not sure that they're ready for that.
Yeah. All right, cool. I didn't see anything else come in, so and consider it finished, done, whatever. Again, Lisa, thank you so much. It's amazing to have people like you in the community. It's amazing for us as a company to be able to lean on people like you to handle some of this complexity that is email deliverability. Again, to get a hold of Lisa at lisagall.com or beautyandbrains.us. I mean, that's going to be the best way for you to get in touch with her. Just reach out, have that conversation, see if it's a good fit, see if she can help you. That the audit that she does, that's square one. That's going to let you know where you stand. That's going to show you the complexity of what you're up against. She does that 30-day monitoring if you go through with having her do everything, just so that she can make sure that the boat is afloat as we set sail here, but then she does ongoing maintenance too. So if it's something where, Scott, like you're saying, it seems tiring, you can have somebody like her on your team that can help navigate some of these issues, and just make sure everything's good to go. So Lisa, again, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks.